There is a quiet experiment taking place in your home right now, whether you are aware of it or not. An experiment in air, light, biology, and attention unfolding in the spaces where you breathe, sleep, and think. Every indoor environment becomes a small ecosystem the moment we step inside it. And within that ecosystem, plants are not decoration, they are living participants. When you bring a plant into your home, you introduce a silent collaborator that responds to carbon dioxide, volatile chemicals, humidity, and even the rhythm of your presence. And in return, it subtly reshapes the atmosphere around your body and mind. From a scientific perspective, the air inside modern homes often carries compounds released from furniture, paints, cleaning products, and electronics. These substances are invisible, yet they interact with our respiratory system and nervous system every time we inhale. Certain plants have evolved remarkable mechanisms to absorb and metabolize these airborne chemicals through their leaves and roots, where microbes in the soil assist in breaking them down. A plant like the snake plant, for example, continues gas exchange even in low light, gently releasing oxygen during the night, a small but meaningful shift for a sleeping body that depends on steady oxygenation to repair tissues and regulate hormones. As you move through your home during the day, plants such as pothos or philodendron quietly respond to fluctuations in light and humidity. Their broad leaves increase surface area for gas exchange, and in doing so, they contribute to a more balanced indoor environment. The human body is highly sensitive to humidity, especially the mucous membranes of the nose and lungs, and when air becomes too dry, it can impair immune defenses. Plants release water vapor through transpiration, a process that subtly restores moisture to the air, supporting easier breathing and reducing irritation that the body often interprets as stress. There is also a neurological dimension to living with plants that science continues to explore. When the eyes encounter natural forms, especially irregular, organic shapes like leaves and stems, the brain's stress response centers tend to quiet down. Plants such as the peace lily or the rubber plant do more than clean the air. They offer visual signals that the environment is safe, stable, and alive. This matters because the nervous system constantly scans surroundings for threat or comfort, and even small visual cues can influence cortisol levels and heart rate variability over time. In kitchens and living areas, herbs like rosemary or basil carry an additional layer of interaction. These plants release aromatic compounds known as phytosides, which are part of their natural defense system. When humans inhale these compounds, they may influence mood, alertness, and even immune function. Rosemary's scent has been associated with improved cognitive clarity, not because it performs a miracle, but because smell is directly wired to memory and emotional regulation centers in the brain. A living plant offers a continuous, gentle exposure rather than an artificial spike. Bathrooms and low-light spaces often feel forgotten, yet plants such as ferns or spider plants thrive in these conditions, responding to moisture and filtering air that tends to stagnate. Spider plants, in particular, adapt quickly to indoor environments and assist in reducing airborne pollutants while producing long, arcing leaves that create a sense of movement. Movement, even when subtle and imagined, plays a role in how the brain perceives vitality within a space. Some plants influence not just air quality, but sleep and circadian rhythm. Aloe vera and certain succulents exchange gases efficiently and require little care, making them reliable companions in bedrooms. The presence of living greenery near resting spaces may reinforce natural rhythms by aligning the mind with cycles of light, growth, and rest. Humans evolved surrounded by plant life, and although we now live among walls and screens, the nervous system still recognizes these ancient signals. Larger plants like the areca palm or the bamboo palm introduce a different scale of interaction. Their size increases leaf surface area, which can improve air circulation patterns in a room. They also create vertical visual anchors, drawing the gaze upward, which can psychologically expand a space and reduce feelings of confinement.
This subtle sense of openness can influence breathing patterns, encouraging deeper, slower breaths that activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Plants like the ZZ plant or Chinese evergreen demonstrate resilience, thriving in low light and inconsistent care. Their ability to endure mirrors something important about health itself, that sustainability often matters more than intensity. These plants continue their quiet biological work without demanding attention, reminding us that consistency in our environment supports consistency in our bodies. Even flowering plants such as lavender, when kept indoors with proper light, offer a combination of visual softness and chemical communication. Lavender's natural compounds have been studied for their calming effects, and while a single plant will not override chronic stress, it contributes to an environment that nudges the nervous system toward ease rather than vigilance. Over time, these nudges accumulate. What is remarkable is not that one plant can transform health, but that 12 carefully chosen plants, each performing its own biological role, can collectively shift the quality of the air you breathe, the signals your brain receives, and the rhythm of your daily life. They do this without noise, without screens, without instructions. They respond to light, water, and time, and in doing so, they remind the human body of patterns it instinctively understands. Living with plants becomes a quiet form of partnership. You water them, position them near windows, notice their changes, and in return, they help stabilize the invisible environment that shapes your energy, focus, and recovery. In a world where health advice often arrives loudly and urgently, plants offer something rare, a slow, continuous interaction rooted in biology, patience, and mutual adaptation, unfolding leaf by leaf in the background of your daily life. When we think about our homes, we often imagine walls, furniture, and technology working together to create comfort. Yet beneath this familiar structure exists a quieter system that mirrors nature itself, an indoor ecosystem shaped by air, light, moisture, and living organisms. Houseplants are not decorations placed into this system as an afterthought. They are active participants, engaging constantly with the air we breathe and the environment our bodies must adapt to each day. Each leaf functions like a small laboratory, exchanging gases, releasing oxygen, and absorbing carbon dioxide in rhythms guided by light and time. This exchange subtly reshapes the quality of the air around us, making indoor spaces feel less stagnant and more alive. The human body, especially the lungs and brain, is remarkably sensitive to air composition, and even slight improvements in oxygen balance can influence mental clarity, energy levels, and the feeling of ease within the chest. Beyond gas exchange, plants interact with airborne particles, capturing microscopic pollutants on leaf surfaces where they are broken down or rendered less harmful through biological processes in the soil. What feels like still air is actually in motion, guided by the quiet work of roots, stems, and leaves cooperating with bacteria and fungi below the surface. This partnership creates a self-regulating system that supports balance without demanding attention or effort from us. Humidity, often overlooked, is another key part of this living exchange, as plants release moisture through transpiration, softening dry indoor air that can irritate the skin, eyes, and respiratory passages. The body responds to this subtle moisture by relaxing protective stress responses, reducing the silent strain that dry environments place on immune defenses. Light entering a room doesn't simply illuminate plants, it fuels their biological cycles, which then influence the atmosphere we inhabit, turning sunlight into a shared resource between human and plant life. Over time, living in spaces enriched with plants can shift how the nervous system interprets its surroundings, signaling safety rather than artificial confinement. This sense of safety is not emotional imagination. It is rooted in evolutionary biology, where humans evolved in close contact with living greenery that indicated water, oxygen, and survivable conditions. When plants are present indoors, they quietly reactivate this ancient dialogue between body and environment. The home becomes less of a sealed container and more of a breathing organism where life supports life through countless small interactions happening every moment. In this way, houseplants do not merely exist within our living spaces, they help redefine those spaces as environments that cooperate with human biology rather than challenge it.
There is a subtle psychological shift that occurs when living plants share our indoor spaces, one that science now recognizes as more than aesthetic preference. The human brain evolved in landscapes filled with movement, color, and organic patterns, and when those elements disappear, the nervous system compensates by remaining slightly alert, as if something essential is missing. Plants reintroduce complexity that feels natural to the eye, with asymmetry, variation, and growth that unfolds slowly over time. This visual language calms the brain because it matches the patterns our perception systems are designed to interpret with ease. Research in environmental psychology suggests that even brief exposure to greenery can lower stress hormones, slow heart rate, and reduce mental fatigue, not through distraction, but through restoration. The mind does not have to work as hard to process organic forms, allowing cognitive resources to recover quietly in the background. In homes filled with screens and straight lines, plants act as soft interruptions, reminding the brain to shift from constant task orientation to a more receptive state. This shift influences emotional regulation, helping people respond with greater patience and stability rather than reflexive tension. The presence of plants has also been linked to improved focus and memory, particularly in environments where attention is often fragmented. The explanation lies in how greenery engages the brain's default mode network, the system involved in reflection, creativity, and integration of experience. When this network is gently activated, the mind becomes less reactive and more coherent, supporting clarity without forcing effort. Beyond individual cognition, plants influence social behavior in subtle ways, making shared spaces feel more welcoming and less rigid. People tend to linger longer in rooms with plants, engage more openly in conversation, and experience a greater sense of belonging. This social ease feeds back into individual well-being, reinforcing feelings of safety and connection that are essential for mental health. Plants also mark the passage of time through growth, leaf change, and cycles of care, offering a slow rhythm that contrasts sharply with the instant feedback loops of modern technology. Observing this gradual change helps recalibrate our internal sense of time, easing the pressure of urgency that dominates daily life. Caring for plants introduces gentle responsibility, a form of low-stakes nurturing that strengthens emotional resilience without overwhelming demand. The act of watering or pruning becomes a mindful pause, grounding attention in the present moment. Over time, this repeated interaction builds a quiet relationship between person and plant, reinforcing the idea that care given outwardly also reflects inward balance. In this way, plants shape not only the air we breathe, but the mental atmosphere we inhabit, fostering a state of calm attentiveness that supports both emotional stability and psychological well-being. Inside every enclosed space, air becomes a living system shaped by what we place within it, and plants quietly participate in this exchange in ways that feel almost symbolic, yet are grounded in biology. As we breathe, cook, clean, and move, invisible compounds accumulate, many released from furniture, paints, synthetic fabrics, and everyday household products. These volatile organic compounds do not announce themselves, yet the body senses them as subtle stressors, asking the liver, lungs, and immune system to work a little harder to maintain balance. Plants enter this equation not as magical purifiers, but as biological partners that interact with air through leaves, roots, and microscopic organisms living in the soil. Through tiny pores on their leaves, plants absorb gases as part of their normal respiration, drawing in compounds that humans exhale or release unintentionally. Some of these molecules are then transformed or broken down, not by the plant alone, but by a collaboration between plant tissues and soil microbes that use them as energy sources. This process mirrors the way the human gut relies on bacteria to digest substances the body cannot handle on its own. In well-maintained indoor plants, this micro-ecosystem becomes a slow but steady filter, reducing the overall chemical burden in the room over time.
While no single plant can sterilize indoor air, the cumulative effect of several plants creates a gentler breathing environment that supports respiratory comfort. People often report fewer headaches, less throat irritation, and a general sense of freshness in rooms with greenery, experiences that align with measured reductions in certain airborne compounds. Plants also influence humidity, releasing moisture through transpiration in response to light and temperature. This natural humidifying effect can ease dry air conditions that irritate nasal passages and skin, particularly in climates where heating or air conditioning dominate. Balanced humidity supports the body's first line of defense, the mucous membranes, which trap pathogens and particles before they enter deeper tissues. When these membranes are dry, the immune system must work harder to compensate, increasing vulnerability to infection and inflammation. Plants help maintain this balance quietly, without mechanical noise or energy consumption. Beyond chemistry and moisture, plants influence how air feels to the body through temperature moderation and subtle airflow patterns around leaves. These micro-changes can make spaces feel more comfortable, reducing physiological stress responses associated with environmental discomfort. Comfort matters because the nervous system constantly scans surroundings for signs of threat or ease, adjusting heart rate and muscle tension accordingly. When air feels clean, moist, and stable, the body relaxes into a state that favors repair and immune efficiency. Over time, this reduced background stress supports cardiovascular health, respiratory resilience, and overall vitality. Plants do not replace ventilation or clean living practices, but they complement them by working continuously, adapting to their environment as living organisms do. Their contribution is quiet and cumulative, reflecting a broader truth about health, that small, consistent influences often shape the body more profoundly than dramatic interventions. In sharing our indoor air with plants, we participate in a reciprocal system, where breathing becomes not just a personal act, but part of a shared biological rhythm that supports life on both sides of the exchange.
Light enters a home not only as illumination, but as information, and plants are among the most sensitive interpreters of that information. As they respond to daylight cycles, they quietly reshape the way humans experience time, mood, and biological rhythm within indoor spaces. The human nervous system evolved under predictable patterns of sunrise and sunset, and when modern life disrupts these cues with artificial lighting and screens, the body's internal clock can drift. Plants, through their visible growth patterns and daily movements, act as subtle reminders of natural time. Leaves orient toward light, flowers open and close, and growth slows or accelerates in response to seasonal changes. These cues, though often unconscious, help anchor the mind to a more natural rhythm, encouraging the brain to synchronize sleep, hormone release, and energy levels more effectively. Research in environmental psychology shows that the presence of living plants in indoor environments is associated with improved mood stability and reduced feelings of fatigue, effects that extend beyond aesthetics into measurable changes in stress hormones. When people share space with greenery, levels of cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, tend to decrease, while feelings of calm and focus increase. This response is thought to be rooted in evolutionary biology, where the sight of healthy vegetation signaled safety, water, and food, allowing the nervous system to relax its vigilance. In modern interiors, plants recreate a fragment of that ancient signal, offering the brain reassurance that the environment is supportive rather than hostile. This shift from low-level alertness to gentle ease has real physiological consequences. Lower cortisol supports immune function, improves insulin sensitivity, and reduces chronic inflammation, all of which contribute to long-term health. Plants also influence mental clarity by reducing cognitive overload. In spaces filled only with straight lines, hard surfaces, and artificial materials, the brain must work harder to process sensory information. Organic shapes and varied textures provided by leaves and stems introduce a type of visual complexity that is easier for the brain to process, giving the mind a place to rest. This phenomenon, often described as soft fascination, allows attention to recover without slipping into boredom, supporting sustained concentration and creativity.
People working or living in plant-rich environments often report improved focus and emotional resilience, suggesting that mental energy is conserved rather than depleted. The interaction between plants and light further shapes this effect. Natural light filtered through leaves create gentle variations in brightness and shadow, reducing the harshness of direct artificial illumination. These subtle shifts can ease eye strain and reduce the neurological stress associated with constant uniform lighting. Over time, this visual comfort supports better sleep quality by reinforcing natural circadian signals, especially when plants are placed near windows where they interact directly with daylight. Better sleep, in turn, enhances memory, emotional regulation, and metabolic health. Plants also invite moments of mindfulness simply through their presence. Watering, pruning, or even noticing a new leaf becomes a small ritual that draws attention to the present moment. These brief pauses can interrupt cycles of rumination and anxiety, allowing the nervous system to reset. Such micro-moments of awareness accumulate, supporting mental well-being in a way that feels effortless rather than forced. In this sense, plants become quiet teachers, demonstrating balance through their steady growth and responsiveness to light. By sharing space with them, humans are gently reminded to align their own rhythms with the natural cues that support clarity, calm, and psychological health. Plants also shape health through their subtle influence on the air we breathe, not in dramatic ways or miraculous ways, but through steady biological exchanges that mirror how ecosystems function outdoors. Every leaf is a living surface where gas exchange occurs, drawing in carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen as part of photosynthesis. While a single plant will not transform indoor air overnight, a collection of healthy plants can meaningfully alter the microenvironment of a room over time. More importantly, plants interact with indoor air through processes beyond oxygen production. The surfaces of leaves can trap fine particles, including dust and airborne pollutants, reducing the amount that remains suspended in the air and ultimately inhaled. This passive filtration supports respiratory comfort, especially in enclosed spaces where ventilation may be limited. The effect becomes more noticeable when plants are placed strategically near areas of frequent airflow, such as windows or doorways, where they can intercept particles as air circulates. Plants also influence humidity, a factor deeply connected to respiratory health and immune defense. Through transpiration, water vapor is released from leaves into the surrounding air, gently increasing indoor humidity. In environments that are too dry, the mucous membranes of the nose and throat become less effective at trapping pathogens, increasing susceptibility to infections and irritation. By moderating dryness, plants help maintain the integrity of these natural barriers, supporting the body's first line of defense. Balanced humidity also protects the skin, reducing dryness and inflammation that can contribute to discomfort and premature aging. Beyond physical air quality, plants influence how people perceive the air itself. Studies show that individuals consistently report feeling that indoor air is fresher and easier to breathe in rooms with greenery, even when objective measurements show only modest changes. This perception matters because comfort and well-being are not determined by physiology alone, but how the brain interprets bodily signals. When breathing feels easier, the nervous system relaxes, reducing shallow, stress-driven breathing patterns and encouraging deeper, slower breaths that improve oxygen delivery and calm the heart rate. This shift in breathing supports cardiovascular health and enhances emotional regulation, linking plants indirectly to both physical and mental resilience. Plants also influence mental clarity by reducing cognitive overload. In spaces filled only with straight lines, hard surfaces, and artificial materials, the brain must work harder to process sensory information. Organic shapes and varied textures provided by leaves and stems introduce a type of visual complexity that is easier for the brain to process, giving the mind a place to rest. This phenomenon, often described as soft fascination, allows attention to recover without slipping into boredom, supporting sustained concentration and creativity. People working or living in plant-rich environments often report improved focus and emotional resilience, suggesting that mental energy is conserved rather than depleted. The interaction between plants and light further shapes this effect. Natural light filtered through leaves create gentle variations in brightness and shadow, reducing the harshness of direct artificial illumination. These subtle shifts can ease eye strain and reduce the neurological stress associated with constant uniform lighting. Over time, this visual comfort supports better sleep quality by reinforcing natural circadian signals, especially when plants are placed near windows where they interact directly with daylight. Better sleep, in turn, enhances memory, emotional regulation, and metabolic health. Plants also invite moments of mindfulness simply through their presence. Watering, pruning, or even noticing a new leaf becomes a small ritual that draws attention to the present moment. These brief pauses can interrupt cycles of rumination and anxiety, allowing the nervous system to reset. Such micro moments of awareness accumulate, supporting mental well-being in a way that feels effortless rather than forced. In this sense, plants become quiet teachers, demonstrating balance through their steady growth and responsiveness to light. By sharing space with them, humans are gently reminded to align their own rhythms with the natural cues that support clarity, calm, and psychological health.